Okay, that worked.
Oh, great.
All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back for a new Books of Horror Live. Just give me a moment while I share it over to the group and we will get started. All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. Okay, I should I should have you tagged in it, and I shared it over to the group, so everything should be good. I made the mistake, and a friend of mine who I was talking about, I was going to interview you with. Um, we he said, "Don't ask her. Just go in blind." And I totally forgot to ask you beforehand. But I'm hoping I'm not going to butcher the name, but I'm going to go with Tatiana Schlote-Bonne.
Close. It's Schlote-Bonne. It has like a bunch of unnecessary like extra pronunciations on the e's.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, but that's honestly, I accept any pronunciation.
Schlote-Bonne.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, um, thank you for joining me today. Please introduce yourself to everyone and tell them who you are and what you're about.
Yeah. Hi, Books of Horror. I'm Tatiana. I wrote the YA evil video game book, Such Lovely Skin, and then I also wrote the adult folk horror, The Mean Ones, and this just came out September 30th. I live in Iowa. I got my MFA in creative writing from Iowa, but I grew up in San Diego. And I coach weightlifting, CrossFit, group fitness. So being like a fitness trainer is my day job. I'm a big gamer. Right now I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for the first time, but I also play like shooters like Call of Duty, Battlefield, Magic the Gathering, lots of RPGs. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So there you go, folks. I did not know you had the gaming background, and also with the your first book you released, that it was what would you liken it to in the video game space?
Um, it's like, well, I'd say it's more like Stay Alive, where the group of college kids play the evil video game. It has that kind of premise, and then the game haunts you like The Ring. As far as the game that they play, the evil video game, it's like an indie horror, like an escape room indie horror game. Something you
Right.
something you'd play for free or for like $3 on Steam.
Okay, that's perfect. So now looks like I'm going to be buying that book.
Well, that would be great.
So,
Thank you.
I too am a gamer.
Yeah, I just
Um,
ask.
yeah, and like Arc Raiders is all the buzz right now, and that's
Yeah,
kind of got my attention. So,
nice.
um, but yeah, so kind of leading off of the introduction, I like to ask authors how they got started writing.
Yeah. Um, when I was in high school, English was the only subject I was regularly good at. I was kind of like floundering through all the other subjects, and I was writing a lot of memoir and personal essays, writing a lot about my relationship with my dad and boyfriends I'd had. And then when I went to college, I took a bunch of creative writing classes. And I did keep doing the memoir and personal essay thing. So when I went to grad school, it was for creative nonfiction. And then I was writing so much creative nonfiction that I was like, I'm not having fun doing this anymore. When was the
Yeah,
last time I had fun? And it was like reading horror books. And so I turned back to horror. And I'd written some literary short fiction in college, like kind of pretentious short stories. and I always gravitated toward the creepy, so it just felt like natural that I would find my way back to horror.
Awesome. Who's some of the writers doing horror that you really enjoy today?
Yeah. T. Kingfisher is probably definitely one of my favorites. I like Grady Hendrix. I love Paul Tremblay, Stephen Graham Jones. I really like meta horror. The September House is probably one of my favorite books that I've read recently. I like horror that is aware that it's horror and is playing with the tropes of the genre. I also like fun horror, so that's where like the T. Kingfisher, Grady Hendrix comes in. Horror that doesn't take itself too seriously and is kind of like tongue in cheek.
Yeah, yeah, those are all great.
And then I obviously also love like feminist horror, so like Rachel Harrison, C.J. Lead. Um, the publisher that published The Mean Ones, Creature Publishing, they are a feminist horror press, and so all of their books have like a strong, yeah, element of either like surviving womanhood or girlhood or some feminist edge.
Right. Um, I did notice that I finished a book earlier this week, or over the weekend, and it's I don't know how you pitch it, but it did feel like a sort of coming of age, as well as towards the end. I don't want to give too much away with it, but like that feminist rage definitely
Yeah.
towards the end. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I'd call it like a good for her folk
yeah,
horror. I also say it's like Midsummer meets Yellow Jackets.
yep. I got the Yellow Jackets vibe too. Um, but yeah, like definitely we want to tease people that have not read it yet, but I don't want to go into too many
Yeah.
full spoilers with it because it's definitely something that people should read, and I think a lot of folks would enjoy it.
Well, thank
With that, in the process of writing this book, did you write it as it is published, or did you write the before all in one go and then the after, or how did you go about that?
Yeah. So with the dual timelines and the mean ones, I wrote them flipping back and forth. So very similar to like, yeah, how it was published. I did outline them each like in their own outline before I started writing. So I knew where each one was going. And then also I made note of like where I wanted to switch to keep the tension high. But as I was writing, it felt more organic to me to switch because that's how the reader would be consuming the story. And it also kept me in check, making sure that like this scene subtly reflects the scene in the present, or the
Right.
scene reflects what happened in the past, and this character, even though it's 17 years apart, still feels like the same person who's just undergone change in some ways, but in a lot of ways is still the same person.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so you wrote it pretty much linear to how
Yeah.
it's published.
Yeah.
That makes sense because you would want to reflect those feelings from one time period to the next.
Yeah.
As a
I will
writer,
say, sorry.
yeah, that makes sense to me. Like,
Yeah. I was like a bit daunted by the dual timeline. I often struggle with multiple timelines when I'm reading a book, and I
yeah,
get like lost in them or like attached to one or over the other. So I had to make sure that myself as a writer felt very invested in both timelines, to hopefully keep the reader invested in both timelines. And then I will say that when I was like coming up with the concept and just like doing my pre-writing before I started, I did start with the ending. So I knew how this book wanted, how I wanted the story to end before I did anything else. Then I had to be like, okay, well, how do I get us here? And then I did all the outlining to work backward.
okay, yeah, that makes sense. And um, another pronunciation question would be Raylac,
Yeah, I was thinking Rollick in my
Raleigh.
mind.
Okay, okay,
Um, but yeah, Raylick makes sense too.
okay. I was just wondering.
I
So,
think she says Rollick in the audiobook.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I typically do audio, but you was very gracious enough to send me a copy, and I just tore through it.
Oh,
Like,
well, thank you. For those listening, I do think that the audiobook is really good if you are an audiobook user. I was very happy with how the narrator brought the story to life. For both of my books, actually, I've been had really great narrators.
okay, so I might do your other book on audio then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And as you was describing your writing process for the mean ones, you touched on one of the other questions that I really like to hear authors' answers to, and that is, are you a pantser or a plotter or a hybrid of both? And I heard you talking about plotting.
Hmm.
So,
Definitely a plotter.
okay.
And I developed that from writing a couple bad books, honestly, and just like trying to pants definitely made me realize that I needed to be a plotter. Um, I'm sure that pantsing works for some writers, but for me, I just got trapped in like meandering plotless stories. And maybe that was some of my background of like writing so many meandering plotless stories where I'm just like focusing on description for college and like pretty sentences. And so figuring out what the point of the story is
Yeah.
and where it's going became key, and then making sure that I have all the necessary beats to get there.
When you set up the plot lines like that, do you follow it rigidly or do you allow yourself freedom to go off script a little?
I do go off script. I do take some detours, and I think that that's like where that's when I start really learning the characters and um there's that saying that like, oh, the characters like write the story themselves in a way that is sort of true. Once I have like the major tent poles of the beats and I understand like how my characters see the world, their choices can, take us outside of the outline a little bit. Typically it always gets where it's going in the end, but it ends like the means to get there becomes stronger than the way that I laid it out on paper.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Especially if you like, if your characters start throwing you curveballs that you did
Mhm.
not expect when you're
Yeah.
exploring them. So um, yeah, that's always a fun question to hear different authors' answers to. Um, so, is there any advice you got when you started writing prose fiction that really helped you? And is there another piece of advice that you would like to pass on to other writers or hopeful writers for the future?
Yeah. Um so my like most tangible help that I got was someone recommended Story Genius to me by Lisa Crone. That wasn't in college, that was like in a writing group. And that book really helped transform my writing. So in Story Genius, the author explains all about basically, like I was saying, figuring out your ending first, figuring out the point of the stories. Like with the mean ones, I was like, I know that I want to write the story about a woman who can't say no, who learns to say no. And so taking that temple and then like writing all of her choices around that was very helpful. Um, and then other advice that I've been given and that I'd give is the ones who don't make it are the ones who give up, really. I had
Mhm.
actually a pretty smooth and like easy author path, so I can't say that like I wouldn't have given up like more easy if it wasn't the case, but
Yeah,
and I feel like I'm still breaking out. Like I feel like I'm still very much a new writer and like haven't carved a name for myself, but I'm lucky to have books out in the world. But I know authors who, have been doing like they've been trying to get their writing published for 10, 20 years, and it's the ones that keep going that like eventually do. It's the ones that quit that never see it happen. Um and then my personal advice is to find a writing group. I would not have written as good of books or written happily if I tried to do it alone.
yeah,
Um, and a lot of my like deep bonds and like connection to other writers are from my writing group.
I think that's really great advice that not too many authors have thrown out there is to have basically a support system.
Yeah,
That's what a writing group is.
right. It is so lonely and isolating if you try to do it yourself. I know because I mean that's like how I was trying to write during the pandemic. Um and then I found an online group. So I found my writing group originally through the website called Scribophile. I don't know like if it's still doing well or like what's going on. I don't know that I recommend that group or that website exactly, but it was a good starting point at least. And then I found some people on there that like really got my writing and then we like broke off into DMs and like formed our own group. If you take if you are a person who goes to creative writing school like I did, staying in contact with those classmates who really got your writing is key. That's one of the risks with taking a writing class is like not everyone's going to vibe with your writing, but when you find those people that do, like hold on to them.
Yeah. Um, Also, if somebody's not vibing with it, if they're not mean about it,
Yeah. No, that is true.
if they're offering you constructive criticism with it, like that's very invaluable, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, so if they get it, but they can like point out your weaknesses, that's extremely valuable too. And I do have several friends who I trust to tell me what I need to hear.
Yeah, because that's like, um, that's essentially what a reader is going to be to you. Like a new reader is, and they might not know your style, might not know who you are, or the types of fiction you write. So, like, they're going in just as blind. So,
Yeah.
having that perspective from somebody close to you that can offer you that point of view of where somebody outside of your circle would be coming from, like that's very invaluable.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's a great piece of advice. Find your tribe,
Yes.
essentially. Like find your tribe. If you're a new and upcoming writer, um, just find people, find a small group of people that are of like mind and also will be honest with you.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's one of the better pieces of advice we have caught on here. So
Oh, great.
thank you. So uh I'm going to try and play with this question. The question is, what has been the biggest surprise to you after joining the horror community? And that could be with the writing, reviewing, or anything otherwise. So, what has been the biggest surprise for you after you started publishing?
Yeah. Um Probably just how supportive and welcoming the horror community has been. I feel that my books have received a pretty warm reception and people are very very willing to spread the word about them. And uh I think any like small amount of success my books have had is definitely due to word of mouth and like good faith in the community. I have been surprised by how I know that authors shouldn't read Goodreads reviews, but I have, and it's always
Yeah,
surprising to see how people can take a book and how they will review it. But you know, I'm just glad that I'm being read at all. So it is what it is. You can say what you want. Um, but yeah, I feel similar to it as I do about the weightlifting community. So interestingly, people ask me if it's hard being like a woman in weightlifting, a woman in gaming. And actually weightlifting is such a warm, welcoming community. Like everyone just wants to help you. Being a woman in gaming is hard. Like
yeah,
God forbid I speak on voice chat and Call of Duty. Yeah, the gaming community is not welcoming at all. And so I
Very
won't say at
close.
all. I have made some really great friends gaming online, and male friends gaming online, but for the most part, the experience is not pleasant. And so, yeah, I was happily surprised by the horror community.
Yeah. I would say pound for pound, super welcoming, super supportive for the most part. So yeah, I agree. And yeah, you have I mean, there's no escaping in any kind of um toxic behavior in any community out there.
Yeah,
So it just exists. And also like, yeah, uh guy gamers for the most part are the worst. So I agree. Like
and you saying that as a guy gamer, yeah,
I know. Like definitely in the past, I've probably been guilty of it, but like I got out of the Call of Duty rat race
yeah,
long ago and just focused mostly on single player type games like you're playing Red Dead Redemption, something with a really great story.
yeah. It is
And it's just like very few times does an online multiplayer game pull me back in. So
right. Yeah,
um
that's fair.
but yeah, um that that you brought up something that I wanted to get into, especially after reading The Mean Ones. And I'm going through, I think I'm setting up the questions. So with The Mean Ones, um, probably from the first few chapters, when people start reading that book, they will notice that the main protagonist, she also is into weightlifting. So my like the question that instantly popped up for me when I was reading through the book, like how much of yourself is in this character?
Yeah, there's a lot of myself in this character. Um, I was thinking about writing a power lifter, someone who's externally strong but internally weak, and making her develop internal strength as well to match her external strength. And I feel like that's very much been my own personal journey. And whenever I, read a book, watch a movie, and we have this like badass female character, I'm very much more interested in like how did she become this way? At
Yeah,
least for me, I wasn't like born super confident or, capable of being in good relationships. And so I was really wanted to kind of like rewind and tell her story of how she got to be there. And yeah, I pulled a lot from my own personal trauma. I dated a guy who was a lot like Lucas. So for those of you who haven't read The Mean Ones yet, Sadie is trapped in this toxic, like verbally and emotionally abusive relationship, and she is so blind to it. Like she's deluding herself and so in love with him and feels that she needs him in order to have value, and that his validation is what fuels her, and she has to like learn to love herself. And I very much had to go through that in my own way. And so I did make a joke recently that The Mean Ones is just me like copying and pasting my memoir and reskinning it as horror. And I feel like in some ways that is actually true.
yeah, yeah. Which is unfortunate, but also it made you the person you are today as well. So
Yeah. For sure. I think I've learned and grown so much that in a way it's fine. um and I feel much more connected to my characters when I put pieces of myself into them, or in this case a lot of myself.
yeah,
I I have a third book coming out next October. It's called What Feeds Below, and it's a horror fantasy. And that book, I'm like, didn't pull anything from my personal life to put in it. And that was harder in a lot of ways, like connect with the characters. And part of that choice was because I needed a break from like putting so much personal stuff into the story after writing The
right.
Mean Ones. So
Yeah,
it was more fun. Like it was like more entertaining for me in a way, but also like a bit more of a challenge.
yeah. because it probably does take a toll. Like when you do bleed on the page like that, you're forcing yourself to relive those memories and draw from them to put into the writing. So
Yeah. And I'm also I just reach a point where I'm like I'm sick of like thinking about this and like writing about the same thing. But
yeah,
no, it ultimately it's very cathartic, and the response from readers who've been through similar situations or like really get Sadie and connect with her has been very rewarding and like everything that I hoped it would be.
it's interesting you say Sadie. I'll say that. I don't know if that's a spoiler or not.
Yeah, because I didn't call her Sabrina.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
interesting. Interesting.
yeah, I think that's probably because, like I told you, I wrote it linearly. So I started with Sadie.
Yeah.
And then it just feels easier for me to just commit to one or the other when I speak about her because I don't want to confuse people who haven't read it yet when I'm like talking about two different names. Yeah.
Oh, we got to build the intrigue for these viewers. Sadie, who's Sadie? Who's Sabrina?
Yeah, right.
Who are these ladies?
Yeah, it does raise a lot
Um,
of questions. Yeah.
Another thing that I noticed in particular reading this book, that there was a lot of pop culture references, especially in the before chapters, like the timeline, like 2006.
Mhm.
So there, it was fun too because um, I'm not sure how old you are, but like that would have been right after I got out of high school. So the pop culture references are still really good, and that would have been like I consider my formative years. So
Mhm.
it was we were hitting right there in the same spot. So it was fun to read through those and see everything you were picking out that was important, maybe in your life at that
Yeah.
times.
Well, good. I'm glad that you enjoyed them. I have learned that I guess this was one thing that surprised me that readers will react very strongly to pop culture references in books, either positively or negatively.
Yeah,
Um, and that's something that I learned with Such Lovely Skin, which has a ton of gaming references, which I hope you'll appreciate. But apparently, a lot of people hate that. What's nice about the mean ones was because it has, the timestamps of when it happened. I was like, well, it's already dated. Like, I'm just gonna have a free for all with the pop culture references. But I don't think that they were surface level at all. Not that they are in Such Lovely Skin either. But for me, in the mean ones, a lot of Sabrina Sadie's insecurities and the way she lets herself be treated is how she's being informed about girlhood in the media. And I'm the same age as Sabrina or Sadie. And I remember growing up in that mid 2000s time when I was
yeah,
like 12, 13, and it's like being super skinny, being platinum blonde, like these were the things that were valued. And
yeah,
yeah, it just like really informed her opinion and insecurities about her body.
yeah. And I mean, I think it's going to be also people that haven't read it yet. If they do, and they might find it really relatable. It's not. I couldn't relate to some things, but I know how some things are, like the mentality, the mean girl mentality in high school and stuff.
Mhm.
So that came across really well, and I think that's going to be relatable for a lot of folks of that age in that time period. So
Mhm.
I hope that resonates with them, and because not everybody, was that you know, idealistic image that people were striving for.
Mhm. Yeah,
So, and I think that's what you try to do with that book, like
I did. Yeah.
give those folks a voice, or
Mhm.
let them know that they weren't the only ones out there feeling like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do hope it resonates with readers. It also was like fun for me, like getting to kill off my middle school bullies fictionally.
Yeah,
And so I hope it is a book for anyone who's felt that way to get to connect and rejoice.
yeah. I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm trying not to. It's no spoilers, no spoilers. It was fun. One thing too with this book, it's pretty straightforward for the most part. You get into a little bit supernatural, but it's I would also very much consider this book a folk horror book.
Hmm.
So if people, I don't know if you pitch it that way or if it's categorized in that subgenre.
We do market it as folk horror. I'm saying we, like me and the publisher. I didn't think that much about it being folk horror when I wrote it.
Yeah,
I thought I was like using some folk horror elements, but to me it felt too like modern and like light on the folk horror. When I think of folk horror, I think of like The Witch or like
right,
Sleuth. So I just thought it was like a pinch of folk horror, but people who love folk horror have like felt comfortable shelving it firmly as folk horror, and I'm happy to brand it as folk horror. Part of
yeah,
that came about because I was consuming a lot of folk horror. So I read The Ritual, watched the movie, watched Midsummer, and I was thinking a lot about how in those stories we experience the cult for the first time along with the characters. And I was thinking about, well, what about after? And so I was playing around with my idea of like protagonist who can't say no learns to say no. And I was like, well, what if she survived a cult sacrifice? Then I can approach this kind of midsummer story from the angle of like 20 years after surviving this and how it's had all these, traumatic effects on the protagonist.
right. Yeah, that's a fun aspect to explore, um, like a survival or a survivor's aftermath.
Hmm.
So, and with the when it started becoming more evident to me that it was getting into the folk horror territory, and you started describing the creature headed people that some characters might encounter. The cover that you have for the book, it's not going to show up great,
Hmm. Yeah, I have
but
to. Hmm.
um, the cover you have for the book is very beautiful. And also, when you started describing the characters, I was like this. I was
Yeah.
like looking at the cover. I was like, oh, because at a glance at the cover, you might not see everything that's there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I thought it was really cool how the artist was able to put the fingers into the antlers. And
Yeah,
that's something that I asked for from the imagery in the book. And I drew like a really bad, hilarious, like stick figure version on paint. And then the
yeah.
artist was able to actually bring it to life. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out.
So yeah, like that. It probably happened a few times reading the book. Like I started studying it more and more, and like trying to decipher all the hidden meanings, whether intentional or not, with the cover and the art. And I really enjoyed that though. So
Oh, great.
compliments to the artist and you
Thank you.
uh, for for coming up with that idea because it was it's very creepy and unsettling. And um, I've seen that you, if you do like a in person author signing, you will wear antlers.
I will, yeah.
So
I haven't figured out how to get fingers on them, but they are antlers.
right. So that's fun. Um, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to bring up. Well, obviously you talked about your gaming past and you've written gaming into your works. And then but yeah, in this book, it's kind of like, if you really think about it now that I've, read the whole thing, it's kind of the crux of how everything with the present timeline, it's like the linchpin, because if online gaming didn't happen in this book, at least how you have it, um, then none of the events happen at the
Yeah,
end of the book.
I guess that is true. I didn't think about it that deeply, but you're right.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's how certain people meet.
Yeah, that
So,
is true. Yeah. Mhm.
so that was fun. You had me guessing. Like I'll tell you too. Like you had me guessing whether who those folks really were. I'll just say that. Like
Mhm.
I did not have it figured out. So
That's good.
bravo, bravo.
Thank you.
So there was one part of a question that I wanted to answer or ask you, and this is kind of a follow up to the plotter pantser question, but with the subgenres of horror that you have written in, are there any subgenres that you haven't written in that you really want to tackle in the future? And you can go into the book you have coming
Yeah,
up next.
that's a good question. I feel like I've touched a few of the major pillars. I have like my tech horror, Such Lovely Skin, folk horror, and then the horror fantasy. Um, I and the horror fantasy was challenging because it is a secondary world. Like it's not our Earth, and there's no magic, but there are otherworldly creatures. I was very inspired by Annihilation and The Descent. So we're dealing with like mutations, and most of the setting takes place in a cave.
Yeah,
Um, anyway, so I also categorize it as cave horror. Um, I really love water horror. Like I'm thinking of Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, and there is a little bit of water horror. There's like a scuba scene in my book that's coming out. Anyway, other horror that I really like or would like to try. I want to write a haunted house story. I feel like haunted house is a horror genre, or at least a trope that's big enough to be its own subgenre.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
I really love horror comedy. I will definitely write a horror comedy someday. In fact, horror comedy is probably how I got started, and meta horror. I like to think that all of my horror has a little bit of comedy in it because I don't enjoy writing horror that's serious all the way through.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Writing horror comedy, like I think everybody should do it at some point if you're a horror writer, like
Yeah.
because like and try and do it without any inhibitions. Like
Mhm.
if you think it's funny, like figure out a way to put it in the book and see how it goes. But like yeah, like um my published novel, that's essentially like it's called Necronado. So just with that title, it's it's a zombie book with tornadoes. So
Oh yeah, I'll definitely have to look that up. Yeah, comedy is hard because people can be such like comedy critics,
yes,
and um, people who like want to take everything super seriously love to tear down anything that tries to be or wants to be comedy. Um, and some people are just like anti-fun. I've realized, but my first exposure to horror was the Evil Dead movies.
yeah. So
And so I've always had like a special place in my heart for horror comedy.
yeah, just know that when you do go, like there's an audience for everything.
Hmm.
So if it's funny to you, it's funny to someone else.
Yes, that's great
Um,
advice.
all right. So um that's pretty much all the questions I have typically for an author. Um I want to talk about your books. A few things about your books. First off, I think we touched on it a little bit, but really, like for readers that pick up the main ones, what would you like for them to take away from it?
Um, if they grew up, if they're around 30, and especially if, they have 2000s trauma like I do, I want them to take away some catharsis and like feeling of camaraderie with Sabrina and what she went through and who she comes out to be in the end. Anyone who's been through like a shitty relationship and felt trapped in it, I'd really love for them to read this book and like feel that there is a way out, even if it's not the way that Sadie takes.
Right.
Yeah, I think those are the things that come to mind. I'd also like anyone who feels that they normally don't like horror to read this book because I think its story goes so much beyond just the fact that it has a horror setting and that some horror things happen. I actually feel that it's like just an important story about a woman finding her inner strength, regardless if it's a horror book or not.
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, it's very much to a coming of age tale.
Hmm.
So yeah, she it's Sabrina slash Sadie finding herself. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's great. Um, what is it? The Such Lovely Skin. For people that may not have read that one, what would be your elevator pitch for them to pick that one up?
Yeah, so a Twitch streamer confesses her darkest secret to an evil video game, and it haunts her in the form of a doppelganger. It's like The Ring meets Stay Alive. And really, I wrote that book uh, for reluctant readers. Like, I purposely tried to make it really fast paced and like gripping from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was thinking a lot about how I was getting really bored by everything I was reading in college, and I wanted to write something snappy and bingeable.
That is kind of a separate piece of advice for writers. Like drawing in reluctant readers might be like the hardest part of the authoring job. You know,
Yeah,
people that say they don't read, like I'm
yeah,
not a reader, write a book that makes them want to read it.
yeah. Well, I think because I wasn't a reader for a while, I was kind of writing the book that I wanted to read, and then was hoping that I could connect with other people, and especially it is a YA, so I'm hoping that young people will read it.
Okay, so there you go. And then with your upcoming book again, is there a pitch you can tell people so that they have something to look forward to?
Yeah, it's about two girls who give tours to rich people into the void, which is this massive 10-mile deep cave, and a job goes wrong and they're stuck in the cave. So it is like descent and annihilation. And really, I was thinking a lot about our world and like people who pay to go up Everest. And this is like a reversed Everest situation where
Yeah,
you pay someone to take you.
go down.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, do you have any upcoming events or signings you would like people to be aware of?
Yeah, I'm going to be in Omaha this Saturday at Pop Fiction, which is a new bookstore somewhere in Omaha. Um, it will be at 3:30 this Saturday, the 22nd, and it is their first event because they are a new bookstore. I think they opened a few months ago.
So awesome. Aside from that, where can people find you online?
Yeah, I'm the Buff Writer on Instagram and TikTok. And then, yeah, my Facebook page name. Yeah.
All right. So there you go, folks. You want to keep up with Tatiana? You got a book to look forward to, and if you haven't read her already, you have some books to catch up on and keep up with her online. So, aside from that, I want to thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed talking with you and reading your book. Like I said, um, I'm definitely going to be picking up your first release as well. So,
Well, thank you. And thank you
if
for
you
having me.
absolutely, absolutely. If you ever want to come on in the future, just reach out and I'll be glad to have you on again.
Yeah, definitely. We should for what feeds below.
Absolutely. So, aside from that, thank you all for watching, and we will catch you next time.